how would I introduce myself? I think that's a very difficult and humbling question, because it's nicer to be introduced. So what I do is I like to think. I really like to think, and I like to read books, and occasionally I write books. And when I was a very young person, I heard from somebody that time is more important than money. And I stuck to that. And so right now I feel like a person who has enough to live, but feels very rich inside. So this was a very good advice. For a living, I hold speeches internationally. I teach at some universities, and I write books. And the new book will come out this September about happiness. It will be a blast after the very difficult last topic. I think it really started when I was in high school, or how you say in Germany, the Gymnasium. And I observed that we all, over a sudden, had to become sexy. I don't know how old you are, but we're like in the same kind of thing there. And this is a new thing, to be sexy. And it was a way for people to put their body, their looks, their desire on the market, and use strategies of pornography to kind of create a comparable and performative look. And this is what I call the pornographization of society. And this was the topic of my first book when I wrote in my early 20s. It's called Der Tanz die Lust, Dancing Around the Lust. It's like a mediocre translation. And in my second book, it's called Du sollst nicht funktionieren für eine neue Lebenskunst. Thou shalt not function, like a commandment for a new art of living. It's the question, okay, if we do not only market our desire, but like everything, what does it do to us? And it's a reflection upon self-optimization as a way to make yourself a product, to kind of increase the value you have, the performance you have. And art of living as an idea to work on your inner self, on the ways you can relate to the world and the relationships you have. But like stating that everything is for sale and everything is kind of a relationship of profit, not a relationship of equals or difference, but only of exploiting the world and yourself and each other. This led me to the psychotic society, how to overcome fear and anxiety, because what we experience now is a deep crisis which relates to the way we treat each other and the way we interact with the other species and the ecosystem. And if everything is only ruled by profit, these relationships are one-sided and exploitory. And this way that our greed and our egotism and our carelessness regarding the aliveness of the world around us has reached a point where we seriously have to consider what it means to be human. In my book, The Psychotic Society, it was a real reflection on how the Western thought started. And first, you can say Plato with this idea that the world is not enough, that there's a world behind the world where there's the truths and the ideas, and only, very special and mostly male people can ever gaze that. Yeah? And then you have this terrible, terrible thing in the Bible where some crazy Christian god who took residency up there, he said like, take the earth and kind of dominate it and cultivate it and have everything for yourself. Like, who says that? Who does that? What a crazy idea that the earth would belong to us and not to itself. That the animals would belong to us and not to themselves. And this is something that various cultures on the world and all other continents have very different perspective and perceptions of that. And this is like the Western way to think is in itself weird and also painful. Not only for the ones who have to suffer the consequences of colonialism, of the exploitations of the environment, of neoliberalism, a very wide idea, but also for the Westerners themselves, because of meaning is created in relationships. This idea of wrong dominance and like exploitation is the death of love. and this is so simple, but it's nevertheless true. Who is at the center of creating a new narrative? I thought about that. It's very difficult because everybody who wants to create a new narrative would be very, suspicious, very dangerous, But I think that if you feel the crisis, if you feel on various levels what's happening, and it's intolerable that people are drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, and it's intolerable that there's systematic racism, and it's intolerable that women are paid less in Germany and Austria than than the men are, and it's intolerable that there's a mass extinction of animals, and it's intolerable what's happening with the waste, and it's intolerable what's happening with Earth and the climate change, and all of this is fucking intolerable. And if you feel some of that, you take the first step as being you respond to it. And by that you are responsible. And by this kind of the momentum, this is idea of the Elevate Festival this time, but the momentum of the crisis, people are called into action. Like it's a very personal thing. It's like you deciding, oh, I don't use that straw anymore, or I don't buy that, or I don't take that flight, or I stop eating meat, stuff like that. And by doing so, consciousness changes. For we do not need a new world. We need a new consciousness of the world. The world is enough, it's still beautiful, it's enough for us. Although it will be never, healed. That's not, the world is a becoming, not an arriving. Yeah? And so I think, to sum it up, community is built by people understanding the necessity of living, thinking, acting differently. And by that, they meet. And I think that's the only honorable way to do it. But if you have something and you want to bring in the people, that's all good. But you cannot create society. Society is, in a way, creates itself. I think it's important too. The revolution we need right now is a consciousness revolution. And this is very beautiful because you just have to start with your own consciousness. Like, look inside and clean up. This is a major contribution. To look for change is to look within. That's what I think. There's the wilderness. There's the uncharted territory in the sediments of my stupid beliefs. That's what I have to go through. That's really where the work lies. But there's two things we can do as Western people. Like, one is to self-reflect. Like, I call this continental self-reflection. Like, Europe is a unity of multitudes. It's a fascinating place. What does it mean to be European? It's a beautiful question because it's an open question. It's something that we kind of live through with our lives, and then we give answers to that, Basically like being a human. But also globalization confronts us with the thinking and the life of the others, with perspectives that are really not like our own. And this is very enriching, for there's only one reality, but a myriad of perspectives. And every perspective is limited. It has to be. Like, what can you see? You can see where you stand. And this is like where you should look. That's where you're expert. That's why you're here, because you stand here. That's a good thing to start, And then you can look up and learn from others. There are ways to relate to nature and to the animals and to our own souls that are more healthy, broadly speaking, or loving, or even fruitful, even in an economic way, in a deep way, that we continue living on that planet and not extinct ourselves out of stupidity and greed. And this is a way that globalization offers us to look at how other cultures handle things. Corona was an experience of finity. So this was what my speech was about today. It was in praise of finity. And it was a thinking about the relationship between the infinite and the finite. Because right now we live in a world of wrong infinity. So there's endless fun, endless consumption, and endless progress. And this is kind of one of the things that keeps everything going. And this is why it was in praise of finity, to say this is all wrong. Like, we cannot escape the face of the other. So this acknowledgement of finality kind of helps us acknowledge the value of things again, and the value of the time and life that is given to us. Finity means that you have to accept that things end, and that everything that is valuable to you needs constant care. There's a strong link between finity and care. It's not only care for the people that you love that are older, but it's also that everything we have, nothing is given. Nothing is fixed, everything is in motion. If you want to have a democracy, work for it. If you want to have an alive continent, work for it. If you want to have nature that's part of life, then plant it and care for it and do it. And if you want to have love in your life, you have to give it and attend to it. But let me just come back to this idea of finality and infinity, because I wanted to say, like, outwards, like, we look for the infinite in kind of restricted or limited matter. There's not infinite resources. You know where there's infinity? It's inside of us. It is in spirit. It is in the way that we can always find an answer to whatever comes. Not a solution, but we just can answer, and by that kind of be responsible. Like, we can respond, and then we're responsible. So we have inside of us the potential of a myriad of perspectives. Although our perspective is limited, but this is like where reading is so cool, because you kind of merge with another consciousnness, and this enriches you in the world. It gives you new perspective, but the world will always be more than you. And this is kind of the humbleness of not stopping to learn. And this is so much fun. Like, this is really infinite fun. You know, there's always more to see and more to learn, but honestly, there's only so much you can have. Book about happiness as a subtitle, which is about the art of speaking to your own soul. If you want to save the world, why not save yourself first? Because this is like, you're responsible for the place you stand. You stand in, you were put in. Like, it's so much more fun to go somewhere and save the world than to clean up the fucking kitchen, you know? But this is like how it starts. If you don't honor the life that you are, you have difficulties honor the life that the other is, and honor the life around you. If you understand that you're not one in your head, but at least two, you know, you have a relationship with yourself. And there's nothing, it's not fixed, you never come to an end. Like, being human means to be in a conversation. And being human means to be on a research. And this is the spirit we need to come through that crisis, whatever form this will take. To understand that we're in a conversation. And I think this is a very European speciality, so this is a big moment.